My name is Nora Ashwell. I'm 33 years old. The day my sister moved into the downstairs suite of my house, my mother stood in the hallway and said, "She's losing her sight. Nora, stop being so cold and give her the space that makes sense." My husband stood next to her holding a box of camera equipment and added, "Some people just aren't built to share." Nora. So I let them turn my home into the set of her story. I let her film her adjustment journey in my kitchen. I let him document her for months. Until the night of her sponsorship dinner, when I stood up, looked her in the eye and said, "I called your eye doctor's office this morning." Her face went pale. My husband froze. My mother's hand started shaking around her wine glass. They thought they'd built something I couldn't undo. They were wrong. If your family has ever called you selfish for protecting what's yours, comment selfish and tell me what city you're watching from. Stay with me, because what I found in that closet changed everything. Like and subscribe. There's more where this came from. 6 months before that dinner, my grandmother's attorney handed me a locked cedar box and told me not to open it until I actually needed to. I didn't understand what he meant then. I understand now. My grandmother Opal died on a Tuesday morning in late January. She'd spent 40 years as a seamstress in our town. The kind of woman who could look at a piece of fabric and know exactly how it wanted to be folded. My mother called me with the news in a voice so flat it barely registered as grief. "You should call Ivy," she said next, like she always did. "She'll need support." I didn't call Ivy. I drove straight to Grandma, Opal's house, and let myself in with the key she'd given me when I was 17. On her sewing table, next to her thimble box, sat a cedar chest with a small brass tag. My name was carved into it. Not my mother's, not my sister's, mine. I didn't open it that day. I sat on the floor of her sewing room with my hand resting on the lid, the way I used to rest my hand on her shoulder while she worked. At the funeral, my sister Ivy arrived 25 minutes late in sunglasses, even though it was overcast, and posted a photo captioned, "Grief looks different on everyone," before she'd even hugged our mother. My father asked me why I hadn't posted anything. I didn't have an answer for him. 3 days later, our family attorney, a careful, unhurried man named Desmond Cole, called me into his office above the hardware store. He set 2 things on his desk. First, a document showing my grandmother had quietly transferred $10,000 into a trust in my name 18 months before she died, bypassing probate entirely, bypassing my parents. Second, the cedar chest itself, containing 40 years of her fabric journals and a sealed envelope with my name on it. "Open when you need it, not when you're curious." She was very specific, Desmond said. "Nothing to your parents. Nothing to your sister. If they ask, tell them there was no inheritance." That was her instruction. I asked if that would hold up if anyone contested it. He said there was nothing to contest, because legally there was nothing there to find. My grandmother had built the wall years in advance. "I need you to understand the shape of my family before I take you further into this, because otherwise you might think I overreacted." I didn't overreact. I had 30 years of practice. When I was 9, I saved for 4 months to buy a second-hand telescope. The day it arrived, my mother carried it straight into Ivy's room. Because Ivy had always been more curious about the world. Ivy was 6 and never once looked through it. I sat outside her door for an hour, waiting for permission to retrieve my own gift. My mother told me I was being dramatic. I learned early that in my family, dramatic was the word they used whenever I asked to be seen. There's context that doesn't excuse what came later, but explains some of it. My mother had a stillbirth 11 months before Ivy was born. She never spoke about it. I found the hospital bracelet in a drawer once, by accident, when I was 13. When Ivy arrived the following year, she became something my mother couldn't name but also couldn't stop, protecting like a fragile second chance. I don't resent my mother for her grief. I resent what she built on top of it, at my expense, for 30 years. At my wedding, Ivy wore white because no one told her not to. My mother said, "She's still finding her personal style." Nobody photographed my mother and me together that day. I noticed. I said nothing, the way I always said nothing. The last time I saw my grandmother clear-eyed and sharp was Thanksgiving, 4 months before she died. My mother had brought a printed sign for something Ivy was calling her healing collective, Grandma. Opal moved the sign off the table without a word. Later, drying dishes beside me, she said, "I'm going to make sure something is only yours." "Do you trust me?" I said yes. I didn't know yet what she'd already done months earlier in Desmond Cole's office. That spring, I bought a house on Renfield Lane, in a quiet part of town called Maple Hollow. 3 bedrooms, a converted sunroom on the ground floor with wide doorways and good light. My husband Callum came to 2 showings and then stopped coming. He was buried in a freelance video project. "You know what you want better than I do," he told me. At the time, I thought that was trust. Now I understand it was distance wearing trust's clothes. I closed on the house alone, in my name only, separate property. When I got home that evening, Callum didn't ask how it felt to sign. He asked from the kitchen, without turning around, "When's Ivy going to come see it?" She came the first weekend. She spent 18 minutes filming a video walkthrough and never once asked about our grandmother. Standing in the sunroom, she ran her hand along the wide doorway and said, "This room's basically already accessible." Funny, right? That night in bed, Callum said, "You know, if Ivy ever needed it, this house has good bones for that kind of thing." I remember thinking it was an odd thing to say about nothing in particular. I didn't know yet that he already knew what was coming. In early October, Ivy posted a video. No makeup, or the version of no makeup designed to look raw on camera. She said she'd been having episodes for weeks. Flashes, blurring, moments where the edges of a room disappeared. She said her ophthalmologist had confirmed early-stage macular degeneration, an aggressive, atypical presentation for someone her age. She tagged a real doctor, Dr. Owen Meredith, a well-known low-vision specialist at Ridgeview Eye Institute. Her followers went from around 90,000 to over 200,000 in 4 days. The comments called her brave. Someone posted a heart eyes emoji next to the words, "Warrior of Light." I watched the video 3 times. On the 3rd watch, I paused at the 12-second mark. Her eyes tracked the comment notifications scrolling on her own phone screen, held just off camera. Perfectly. Easily. The way someone reads text they can see clearly. My mother called a family video chat that night. Ivy needed a stable, accessible environment while she adjusted. My mother turned to me on screen and said, "Please tell me you're not going to make this difficult." I asked 4 questions. Which clinic? How often? Whether her partner, Marcus, would be helping with mobility training. How long before her ophthalmologist expected a plateau. My mother said I was interrogating a woman who was losing her sight. Callum, sitting beside me, said, "Nora, come on." I asked 1 more question, the full name of her doctor. "Owen Meredith," Ivy said. "Ridgeview. Look him up if you don't believe your own sister." I didn't say anything else. I saved the name. 3 days before Christmas, my parents and Ivy and her partner Marcus showed up at my house with a moving truck. Nobody had asked me. Callum helped carry things in. The first box he brought inside wasn't hers. It was a padded case for a ring light. My mother stood in the hallway and pointed at my sunroom. "She's losing her sight. Nora, stop being so cold and give her the space that makes sense." Callum, still holding the ring light case, added, "Some people just aren't built to share, Nora." I stood there for 4 seconds. I counted them. Then I picked up a box labeled Ivy, Soft Basics, and carried it into the sunroom myself, because arguing in front of my parents had never once worked in my favor. Ivy touched my arm as I set the box down and said, "Thank you, sis," in a voice pitched exactly for the camera propped on the dresser behind her. That night, alone in the bathroom, I opened a private document on my phone and titled it Renfield. The first line I wrote, December 22nd. Mother said cold. Husband holding her equipment. Over the next few weeks, I watched. She woke at 7, sat in the sunroom with a cup of tea, and filmed for 2 hours, with the blinds adjusted for the right kind of light, then a break, then more filming. My mother texted me daily reminders that Ivy was adjusting, and shouldn't be pressed about appointments. I noticed small things I couldn't unsee. She read the label on a spice jar from across the kitchen without hesitation, then caught herself and reached for a magnifier she didn't need. She never once misjudged a doorway or a step. One evening I came home early and found her at the dining table with Callum, both laughing quietly over something on her laptop screen, her face 6 inches from his, reading his notes without squinting once. He hadn't laughed like that with me in months. I didn't say anything. I understood driving to work the next morning that the real problem wasn't attraction. It was that he'd chosen the room where he felt admired over the room where he was known. In late January, I went looking for a spare charger in the sunroom closet and found a shoebox pushed to the back. Inside, a pair of designer sunglasses with the tag still attached, and a folded white mobility cane, brand new, never unwrapped from its plastic sleeve. The receipt tucked inside. The box was dated 3 weeks before her diagnosis video. I photographed all 3 items. I put them back exactly as I'd found them. I checked Ridgeview, Eye Institute's public website that night. Dr. Owen. Meredith saw new patients by physician referral only. His clinic ran Tuesdays and Fridays. His current wait list was listed publicly as 10 to 12 weeks. Ivy had been tagging him in posts about weekly appointments since October. I called an old coworker, Dana Whitfield, a low-vision occupational therapist I'd known for years through a community project. I didn't say Ivy's name. I asked hypothetically what someone 6 weeks into a genuine diagnosis like hers would be doing. Dana didn't hesitate. Orientation and mobility training enrollment immediately. Real cane use looks clumsy at first. Nobody glides with a cane in week 6. Screen reader or magnification software actually installed on their devices. Consistent light sensitivity, not selective. And they'd be seeing Meredith's team constantly. Because early aggressive presentations get monitored closely, I told her. None of that matched what I was seeing. She went quiet, then said, "That's worth paying attention to." Around that time, a woman named Priya Anand, my realtor, who'd stayed a casual friend, mentioned over coffee that a small press called Harbor Light was celebrating a new memoir acquisition on their public feed. Out of curiosity, I searched it. Learning to See in the Dark by I. Prescott. Advance signed in early September, 5 weeks before Ivy's public diagnosis video. Publishers don't sign 6-figure memoir deals on a hunch. They sign confirmed narrative arcs. A week later, I borrowed Callum's laptop to print something and saw, in an open tab, a threaded email from Harbor Light Press. Subject line: Photography Partnership, I. Prescott Memoir, 9200 advance. Dated late September, 2 weeks after the publisher's contract. 3 weeks before the diagnosis. He knew before I did. I closed the laptop and said nothing. In February, checking the shared account we used for the mortgage, I found 3 Zelle transfers from Marcus to Callum, totaling just over $7,000. Memo line reading photography services. No invoices logged anywhere in Callum's freelance books. Then, on a Saturday, a message arrived on my Instagram from a woman named Melissa Doyle. From a city 3 states away. "Are you Ivy's sister? I need to tell you something." She did this before, in 2021, under a different name. That time it was chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. Same tone of voice, same posting rhythm. The account disappeared. After someone asked one specific medical question in the comments, she sent screenshots. I recognized my sister's exact turns of phrase. That night I finally opened the sealed envelope from my grandmother. 2 pages, her careful handwriting. I won't read you the whole letter, but the sentence that mattered was this: watch her eyes, not her words. Whatever she says she can't see, she has already seen exactly what she wants from you. I cried for a few minutes. Then I called Dana Whitfield and asked if she was free on the 24th. At Easter dinner, Ivy announced a 6-month milestone celebration at my house. A podcast recording with a host named Simone Delacroix, plus 2 brand partners, Marcus Whitmore from an adaptive eyewear company, and Tasha Lindqvist from a low-vision lifestyle brand. My mother slid a form across the table, asking me to formally designate the sunroom as Ivy's accessible residence for Insurance purposes. I said I'd review it and take it home. That night, Callum told me to just sign it. She's going to need this soon, he said. How do you know that? I asked. He said her doctor had told her so. Her doctor's never met her, Callum, I said. His face went pale for exactly 2 seconds. Then he said the photography deal was just freelance income I forgot to mention. I closed the bedroom door. Not hard, just enough. The morning of the 24th, I called Ridgeview's front desk myself. I'm confirming whether Dr. Meredith accepts walk-in patients. No, ma'am. Referral only. Tuesdays and Fridays. Current waitlist is about 10 weeks. I hung up. I hadn't asked about Ivy by name. I hadn't needed to. Real patients don't self-refer through Instagram tags. I organized everything into a folder I kept under the kitchen sink. The receipt for the unused cane and sunglasses. The Harbor Light contract date. Callum's photography email. The Zelle transfers. Melissa's screenshots. My grandmother's letter. That evening, Simone arrived with her microphone at 6:15. Marcus Whitmore and Tasha Lindqvist arrived shortly after with their contracts. My parents came at 6. Callum poured wine. I set a glass of water in front of Ivy and said nothing else. At 7, Simone hit record. Ivy began her rehearsed monologue about resilience and light and family. My mother wept quietly. Callum moved to the corner with a camera, backlighting her against the window. At 7:11, I set my fork down. I stood, walked to the counter, and came back with a folder. I called your eye doctor's office this morning, I said. The one you keep tagging. Her face drained of color. Callum froze mid-breath. My mother's hand shook around her glass. That's illegal, Ivy whispered. I asked a receptionist a public question, I said. Does Dr. Meredith accept walk-ins? He doesn't. Referral only. 10-week wait list. You've tagged him in posts about weekly appointments since October. The doorbell rang. Dana Whitfield stepped in, apologized for the interruption, and read Ridgeview's public clinic policy aloud from her own phone, word for word matching what I'd said. She nodded to the room and left. 90 seconds start to finish. Marcus Whitmore set his contract down. I need to make a call, he said, and stepped into the hallway. I opened the folder. I placed the photo of the untouched cane and sunglasses on the table. Bought 3 weeks before your diagnosis video. Never unwrapped. I placed the Harbor Light announcement next. Signed in early September. 5 weeks before you told us anything. I placed Callum's email. You knew before the family did, I told him. He said, Nora, I was going to tell you. After the book launched, I said. I placed the bank statement. Marcus opened his mouth to explain. Ivy said quietly, Don't. I placed Melissa's screenshots. Fibromyalgia 2021. Same rhythm, different illness. The account disappeared the moment someone asked one real medical question. Simone reached over and switched off her microphone. I'm so sorry, she said to Ivy and left. Marcus Whitmore came back in only to collect his folder. We won't be moving forward. Tasha Lindqvist followed him out without a word. My mother sat very still. She hadn't known everything, but watching her face, I understood she'd known enough. For a long time, and had simply chosen not to look. My father stood and walked to the door. He stopped at the threshold and didn't step through it. I picked up my phone, dialed Ridgeview's front desk, and set it in front of my sister. Call them back yourself, I said. All you have to do is press green. She didn't press green. She stood, walked to the sunroom and closed the door. I heard the lock turn. The next morning I changed the locks myself. Within a week, the GoFundMe, just under $78,000 raised, had begun issuing refunds after donors flagged mismatched receipts. Harbor Light sent formal notice pausing the memoir pending review. The sponsorships were terminated in writing within 2 days. Simone posted a short public statement about trusting a source too quickly. In the small local freelance community, word moved fast. Callum lost 2 clients within the week. My mother was fine, physically, though she didn't speak to me for a month. My father called on his own, without her in the room for the first time in years. I saw it, he said. I'm sorry. I told him I wasn't ready yet. He said that was fair. Callum moved out in May. Because the house was separate property, there wasn't much to divide. I mailed his ring back with tracking and no note. Ivy and Marcus left town by early summer, moving in with his parents 2 states over. My father mentioned it on the phone gently, like he was handing me something fragile. I spent a weekend turning the sunroom back into what it always should have been. Not a bedroom, not a set. I brought my grandmother's old sewing table up from storage and set it by the window, next to a small stack of her fabric journals from the cedar chest. I hung one of her hand-stitched quilt squares on the wall above it, the one with the uneven blue stitching she never fixed, because she liked the honesty of the mistake. I posted a small notice at the community center. Beginner quilting lessons. Saturdays, my house. 4 people signed up in the first 3 days. My first student was a quiet 10-year-old named Wren, who pricked her finger on the first stitch and apologized like it was a crime. You don't have to be careful, I told her. You just have to be honest with the thread, she laughed. For the first time that afternoon, and so did I for the first time in weeks. If you're still in a house where you have to explain your own name to the people who are supposed to already know it, subscribe. This channel is for the ones who watch quietly, remember everything, and eventually calmly lock the door behind them. I sat in the sunroom that evening with the window open. My grandmother's quilt square caught the last of the light. I put my hand flat on the sewing table the way I used to rest it on her shoulder. Grandma, I thought, this room doesn't need anyone else's story anymore. I'm here, and it's mine.